please post your name and where you're joining us from in the chat. Please let us know in that what your issues might be, how you'd like to help our efforts. And certainly as we go forward with our speakers, let us know if you have any questions. Put them in the chat as well. For those joining by phone and Facebook, thank you so much. We're so happy to have you. We have an action-packed agenda tonight. Welcome all. We are here tonight because we are part of a national movement to transform our country. All across the country, our revolution is organizing to fight for progressive policies and elect progressive champions. Because when we organize, we win. So again, I'm going to say, please, everyone, let us know who's here. We want to see your names. We want to know where you're joining us from, your towns. You know, we're hoping to see people from across the state. And don't hesitate, you know, don't be shy. Put your questions as our speakers go forward and things come up and you'd like to have some questions.
Just with a brief update on national priorities, successes, wins, and a little bit of a fundraising pitch as well. So 2021 promises to be a year when we can make real progress on our progressive agenda, but we need to organize to win. And what does that mean? We need to continue building our movement. We need organized people with organized money to create power. That's why we are in the midst of our very first membership drive, when we are asking all of our supporters to officially join our revolution. And that is my tonight. Sign up if you are not already a member, and thank you. And when you sign up, my colleague is putting the link in the chat. Please tell us why you are joining, why you are a supporter. If you haven't signed up again, just join us by clicking the link in the chat. We need all of you to be part of our movement for change, because even though 2021 isn't a midterm or presidential election year, it is not an off year for us. This year, there are hundreds of races across the country that need our help, your help and support to elect progressive champions up and down the ballot. And we are already off to a great start. Just last week, our Revolution St. Louis and our Revolution Illinois celebrated big wins. And electing progressives down ballot matters. Just look at what Ali Savitt, who was elected Washtenaw County prosecuting attorney with the support of our Revolution Michigan, has been able to accomplish since taking office in January. Ali has taken action to end cash bail. He stopped working with ICE on immigration enforcement. He prosecuted violence based on gender and sexual orientation as hate crimes, just to name a few examples. And this is only since January. So electing progressives to Congress is also a priority, as you well know. And right now we are working very hard to ensure that our very own Nina Turner becomes part of the squad. And you have heard from two amazing Our Revolution Ohio organizers last month who shared the local team's effort in making that happen. And speaking of Congress, let's talk briefly about how we are fighting for progressive policies in Washington. While we applaud the passage of the COVID relief for millions who have lost their jobs and others who are being paid poverty wages, we are very disappointed that even with a 4-year transition period, the minimum wage hike was dropped. And Joseph Givarghese, our executive director, was very vocal about our disappointment. He told NBC News that it is political suicide for Democrats to walk away from our workers and our promises. And it is a lie, of course, honestly, to tell low-wage workers now that Congress will pass a standalone bill, the Raise the Wage Act. There is zero chance, to be honest, of a Senate vote on anything more than a token raise like a $10 or $11 due to the Senate filibuster. But the game is not over. There will be a second budget bill this year, which will need only 50 votes. And our revolution will mobilize with your support now for a tax penalty to be included in that bill on all bottom-feeding corporations that don't pay $15. And we will hold Biden accountable. That is part of our 4-point plan this year. We will expect the White House to fight for 15, not to just mention it and then later drop it. And also, just last week in Congress, we supported the introduction of legislation to make sure that the ultra-rich pay their fair share in taxes. And this is something that our Revolution Connecticut is going to discuss here tonight. Our members helped pass H.R. 1 for the People Act in the House. This legislation will rights and shore up our democracy. We also passed the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act and legislation to end qualified immunity for rogue police officers. But as we have seen with the Fight for 15, we can't rely on GOP support to get our agenda passed in the Senate. That means that we must end the filibuster to stop Republican minority from blocking the For the People Act, the George Floyd Act, and all the other progressive priorities from becoming law. And our revolution is working to that end with the Fix the Senate coalition right now to end the filibuster and restore democracy to the Senate. You can join us at the link in the chat, which my colleague will place there for you. We are also fighting for progressive change at the local level. Just this past week, we had significant victories here in my state, in New Jersey. Cannabis reform was finally signed into law after many, many months of legislative debate. And we are so proud that Illinois became the first state to end cash bail. And finally, let's talk about transforming the party. Our revolution is the only group working to change the Democratic Party into a progressive party. And since January, we have elected progressive party positions in California, Colorado, Maine, Florida, and Michigan. So as you see, it is amazing how much organizing is going on across the country. We need you to become a member to help this work continue. The link is in the chat for you. Please sign up. As we always say, elections come and go, but revolutions endure. Your monthly gift will help us keep our work and our movement going strong, but we need you. And if you need an incentive to join, we have one more. Every new member will receive a personalized Movement Builder membership card in the mail, and that is designed by internationally renowned illustrator Lauren Rowling, who is also a volunteer leader with us in Nashville. She's with Our Revolution Nashville. So this is a great opportunity. $5. You can start with $5 a month. You can become a member, a sustaining contributor to Our Revolution, and help us continue this awesome, effective organizing work that we are carrying out everywhere and here in Connecticut as well. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Beth to introduce our first speaker if we are ready.
Yes, we are. Thank you so much for that, Anna. Thank you, Senator Kushner, for joining us. Senator Kushner is a Democratic state senator who represents the 24th State Senate District of Danbury, New Fairfield, Sherman. She's the chair of the Labor and Public Employees Committee, vice chair of the Public Health Committee, and member of the Appropriations, Education, Environment, Executive, and Legislative Nomination Housing Committees. She's been advocating for organizing workers and building coalitions for working Americans, pay increases, improved health care, secure child benefits, directed by the members of the United Auto Workers Region 9A, of which I am a member, retired. Thank you, my sister. Covering New England states, a portion of New York, and Puerto Rico. She's coached the Connecticut Working Families Party. She's a member of the Coalition of Labor Union Women, member of the Labor Council for Latin American Advancement, and lifetime member of the NAACP. She's committed to the fight for America's working people, yay, by securing better employee health and safety, public pre-kindergarten, tuition-free college, paid family and medical leave, protection of the local environment, promotion of women's and family issues. Senator Kushner will discuss the progressive taxation legislation, what's in the bill, how it's going, where it stands now, and anything Connecticut residents can do to help passage of the bills, including any calls to action and any other pertinent issues. Thank you so much for your attendance, and take it away.
Thank you for inviting me. It's great to be here with you. I just have to say at the beginning that you got all of my towns except one small part of Bethel that I represent. And so I don't want them to leave. I don't want them to feel I left them out. So but I appreciate your interest.
Ignored it. Sorry.
I can't ignore Bethel ever. I do want to thank you for this opportunity. As you heard, my life really was spent in the labor movement. I started working as a union organizer in 1977. And in the 42 years that I was involved with the UAW, I was fortunate to work with tens of thousands of workers to organize, establishing right to organize for graduate workers, organizing casino workers here under tribal law. That had never been done before. Just, a variety of experiences that, really showed me how much working families need political change in our country. And I ran in 2018 after I retired. And sister from the UAW, I'm happy that I have to know where you worked. You have to tell me at some point where you worked and where you were a member of the UAW. But I'm happy that we have a rule in our union that when you get elected as director, if you turn 65, we all agree voluntarily that we will retire. So we open up a space for someone else. And so I was fortunate. I worked until I was almost 66, and then retired from the UAW and was urged to run for the state Senate representing the 24th district. Now, to give you a little perspective, our district had been represented by Republicans since for more than 25 years, and that the previous 10 years by a particular Republican senator who had voted against everything that was worker, pro-woman, pro-immigrant, that came before the legislature. So I really ran to flip the seat and I was sort of the opposite of the person I was running against. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I really think I want to sort of emphasize something you probably already know, that when we run on values that represent working families, that we can win. And when we run on bold programs, we can win. I ran in 2018 very much on the issue of paid family medical leave, and I was fortunate to have won the election, and then as labor chair to be involved in working with the coalition of organizations, unions, political organizations, women's organizations that had been fighting for this for years, and we were successful in getting it done. So it's been very exciting being in the state Senate. It's very different than being a union representative. And I was just telling someone last night, I still dream about the union every night. So I really haven't left that world. I want to talk about the bill that we introduced in the Senate. It's Senate Bill 821. And it is a bill that was geared at progressive taxation. And before I talk about what we're doing in the bill, I want to talk about why we're doing it. We know that we don't have enough revenue in our state to fully support essential services that all working families need. So we don't have enough money to really fully fund our schools. We don't have enough money to take care of our roads. We don't have enough money to fight the opioid crisis that is killing so many of our youth. And so we have these huge problems in our state, yet we don't have the money, the resources to fight, to address those needs. And it seems crazy to me that we don't have those resources when we're such a state with such great wealth. And, that is something that I think we all recognize that has to be addressed. We have great wealth. We also have great inequity. So a number of us got together with a coalition, and 9 of us in the Senate have co-sponsored Senate Bill 821. And the goal of that is to create enough revenue that we can fully fund our schools, that we can work on pre-K education, that we will have public higher education, affordable, free public higher education, that we will expand healthcare coverage and expand it to undocumented youth, that we will be able to provide affordable housing, and that we will have enough money for municipal aid. And these are all things that are tremendously important to accomplish. The way the bill seeks to do this is we came up with a number of different ways to tax wealth. And And in doing so, we created roughly $3 billion worth of new revenue for the state. We also decided that we wanted to be very specific about ways in which working families would benefit from a more progressive tax, meaning that we also wrote into our bill tax credits for children so that working families with children would get a tax credit here in Connecticut. We also wrote in an expansion of the earned income tax credit for working families that are just barely making it. And so that would expand the amount of tax credit they get at the lowest end. We also wrote into our bill an improvement on the tax credit, property tax credit for low-income families. So there are a number of ways in which we reduced taxes or help people with tax credits at the low end of income. And then we offset that and generated even much more income revenue from things like property tax that would be placed on homes that are valued, have a market value of more than $2.1 million. And for those homes, there would be additional tax on the amount over $1.5 million in assessed value. So the amount that they pay taxes on. After you get to $1.5 million, there would be a 2% tax on every dollar above the $1.5 million. We looked at similarly increasing the marginal tax rate on the highest earners. So people who are earning $800,000, individuals earning $800,000 a year would pay a higher income tax rate. People earning joint filers who are earning more than $1.5 million would pay more in their income taxes. We lowered the thresholds for paying on the estate tax so that people who are inheriting great wealth, the schedule would be lowered, so we would be actually taxing some of that wealth at a lower level, because right now I think it's going to like $20 million before you start paying those taxes. So, we came up with a number of different ways that would actually ultimately generate about $3 billion of revenue. One of the, I think, most interesting new taxes that we talked about was, and it's written a way that it would tax advertising on social media platforms, but the amount of income or amount of gross revenue that these companies would have to earn on a global level was so high that we're really only talking about 3 companies, Facebook, Google, and Amazon. And so their ads would produce a revenue for Connecticut. So there are a number of creative ways in which we worked on this bill. There is going to be a hearing on Monday before the Finance Committee. So we're really excited that this bill is getting a public hearing. And I hope you'll all tune in to that hearing during the day. It'll probably go on for some time, but to hear about some of the pros, and then I'm sure there'll be people who will testify against our bill as well. So that's a brief introduction. I know you also will be meeting. We originally planned for my co-chair, Robin Porter, and I to be on at the same time. We both, she is introducer of the same, very similar, almost the same bill in the House around progressive revenue. And then we both are co-introduced the bill on equity and labor peace for the cannabis, for the industry that will come out of the act that is before our legislature to legalize adult use of cannabis. So we worked on both of those bills together, and I really enjoy being her co-chair. We couldn't be on here together because we right now have a very long public hearing that started at 10 o'clock this morning, and it's still going on as I speak. So after I get off, you'll see Robin, and I will leave, and she'll come on and talk to you then. So I don't know if you'd like to, I'll take any questions if you have questions for me.
Hi, this is Gina. I have a question from Gary from Portland. He asks if it's usual to piggyback state income tax on the federal income tax. Maybe you could speak to what states do that.
Sure. A number of states do that. I don't have the list in front of me, but we have been doing that in Connecticut. Connecticut has had a state income tax since the 1990s. It was controversial when it started, but I think, because there are a number of other states around us here in the Northeast that have a state income tax in addition to the federal tax, the income tax. I worked in New York City for many years. We actually had a state income tax and a city income tax and federal income tax. So, every state's a little bit different how they go about it. Some have county taxes, but in Connecticut, we don't have any county government. So we just have the state tax and the federal tax.
Great, thank you so much. We have one other question, which I think is a popular one on this topic. We hear scare tactics that if we raise the income tax on the rich and corporations, they'll flee to Connecticut. So if you could speak to that.
Well, yes, we hear that.
Connecticut, I'm sorry.
They'll leave Connecticut, yes. We hear that all the time. I think there are some, there's some super wealthy people who have homes in multiple states. But the reality is that we have not seen this be a real deterrent in other places. If you look at New York right next door, they have a higher marginal tax rate than we do. New Jersey has a much higher marginal income tax rate for their residents than we do. So I think it's more of a fear tactic, and that, I know that's what's always said, but I don't believe that really is a danger for us.
Well, thank you so much. If nobody else has any other questions, we're going to transition over Rep. Porter, but I thought, do you want to talk about the update from last meeting?
Gina, 1 second before you go on, 1 second. I just want to take a chance to thank Julie Kushner, Senator Kushner, myself. This is Beth Angel. I was in Union Local UAW 2320, the legal services, statewide legal services of Connecticut. And I just want to ask Gina, if you would put into the link that stuff to reach out to your state senators and representatives, the gov link with the actual state Senate and House bills so that people can
contact their legislators.
Contact the legislators and get that done. Okay,
Beth, I did see a question here from Winhammer, who's a dear friend of mine. So, I don't want to ignore him when it asked if we would be testifying, myself and Robin, on Monday. I can't speak for Robin. I know that I have signed up to testify, and I hope that I'll be able to do that. One of the things that happens in the Senate, we have, as you heard at the beginning, I have 7 committees. And so I'm often tied up in other meetings, but it is my intention to testify. And I just saw Hava Vento also join here, another person from the area here that I know, and it's good to see these names pop up. And Beth, I just before I leave, let you know that Local 2320, before it was Local 2320, it was part of District 65, my local union. So I know your leadership way back to they joined us in 1980. So that's how old I am. I was there when they joined, but it's a terrific organization that you were a member of. So thank you all. And I'll go back to the hearing, and I'll leave you to hear from my wonderful co-chair. I know she's so dynamic that I'm glad that I went first, because you'd all be disappointed. You're going to be really, really agitated after you hear her. So thanks very much. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. And I just also want to say one quick thing. If you want to add anything on the discussion on the progressive taxation bill, in addition to the presentation on the legalizing marijuana, please feel free. And I'll turn it back to Gina. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Beth Angel. We are actually done with questions. So I'm going to transition this to Mary so she can introduce Rep. Porter.
Well, welcome, Representative Porter. Just to let everybody know a little bit about State Representative Robin Porter. She was endorsed by Our Revolution National and Connecticut, and she represents the 94th State Assembly District, which includes the towns of Hamden and New Haven. She's a member of the Appropriations and Judiciary Committees. She's authored and sponsored legislation that restores fairer treatment for incarcerated women, prohibits judges from setting bail for those charged with misdemeanors, outlaws solitary confinement of minors, requiring more data from prosecutors, and strengthening transparency between law enforcement and the public. In January 2017, Representative Porter, chair of the Labor and Public Employees Committee. Under her leadership, Connecticut workers have benefited from tremendous progress in the workplace. Representative Porter has championed legislation that strengthened gender pay equity laws, which had not been updated since 1963. She led in the House to raise the minimum hourly wage to $15 an hour by 2023, and led to establish the paid family medical leave insurance program, which is the most generous paid leave program in the country. She was employed by the Communication Workers of America from 2001 to 2017. And is a longtime community activist. Representative Porter here to discuss the legalizing marijuana legislation, which includes provisions to expunge previous marijuana convictions. She's going to tell us a little bit about what's in the bill, how it's going and where it stands now, and anything that Connecticut residents can do to help passage, including calls to action and any other pertinent issues. So I would now turn it over and welcome Representative Porter.
Well, hello, and thank you all for having me this evening. I am, as you said, State Rep Robin Porter, representing the 94th District in the House, which is Hamden and New Haven. And just to get right into it, we have introduced the bill out of labor, House Bill 6377. Which is an act concerning labor peace agreements and a modern and equitable cannabis workforce. So just a summary, the bill starts with truly and thoroughly accounting for the damage that's been done by the war on what people say war on drugs. I say the war on Black, brown, and poor people. And it uses data to determine how to reinvest the revenue that would come from the sale of cannabis. So we look at a equity task force, and they would be the ones to make the recommendations. The bill also focuses on workforce development and creating thousands of jobs. This is a billion and multi-billion-dollar business we're talking. Chicago, Illinois, they legalized last year, and in 2020 during a pandemic and high rate unemployment, they raked in $1 billion. So we're looking at the workforce development piece of it. And then as we create the jobs, we want 10% of that revenue to go toward a permanent pipeline of prosperity to help the communities that have been disproportionately impacted and harmed the most by this war. The bill also ensures community members with adverse criminal histories cannot be subject to discrimination due to past offenses, which is really important. A lot of struggles with people trying to come home and accomplish the two major things they have to accomplish upon reentry: housing and finding a job. The bill raises the importance of moral obligation to our Native American neighbors, something that we haven't been so good at doing when we talk about creating industries such as this one. It also addresses protections for vulnerable communities like students, parents, and those living in qualified public housing. We feel that's important because a lot of times folks that have these charges and felonies in general have a hard time coming back and living with folks that would support them if they live in public housing. They're not allowed to do that. Actions against corruption with public officials, like what we saw happen in Massachusetts. It also includes provisions for home cultivation. It creates 6 different types of licenses. And it also creates a clear partnership with our flagship school, University of Connecticut. as a support system for our equity program search and expertise. I don't know how many of you know, but UConn actually has a course that they offer on cannabis. And